The Galactic Training Academy floated in the void between three suns, its massive structure housing cadets from 47 different species. For the Keth Empire, this was meant to be a simple show of force, demonstrate their military might, while the primitive humans completed their basic training. Admiral Vex of the Keth Fourth Fleet positioned his ships in a defensive formation near the Academy. His silver skin gleamed under the artificial lights of his command bridge as he watched the readings. 200 vessels under his command, each one a testament to Keth engineering and superiority. "Sir, the human cadets are preparing for their final exercise," reported his aide, a nervous blip named Officer Wren. The small, green-skinned alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he studied his scanner. Vex's mandibles clicked with amusement. Deathworlders playing at war games. How entertaining. Their planet's gravity is 3 times standard. Their atmosphere is poison to most species, and they think this makes them warriors. The humans had arrived at the Academy 6 months ago, 20 young beings from the 3rd planet of a yellow star system. They were bigger than most species, with thick bones and dense muscle, but the galaxy had seen strong species before. What made humans different was something the Keth had not yet understood. On the Academy's training deck, Captain Rex stood before his human cadets. The middle-aged instructor had scars across his weathered face and arms like tree trunks. Behind him, 20 young humans waited in perfect formation. "Today you show the galaxy what Earth training means," Rex said, his voice carrying across the metal floor. "Remember, you are not just representing humanity. You are showing them what a death world creates." The cadets nodded. Among them stood Tom, a farm boy from Earth's northern continent, his blonde hair cut short and blue eyes focused. Next to him was Maya, dark-skinned and quick, her hands steady despite the weight of her gear. There was Jake with his red hair and easy smile, and Nina, whose grandmother had survived 3 wars on Earth. They wore simple training armor, nothing like the advanced suits of other species. Their weapons were basic plasma rifles, outdated by galactic standards. But their eyes held something that made even the Academy's alien instructors take notice. A calm readiness that spoke of countless hours of brutal training. "The exercise is simple," Rex continued. "Defend the Academy against a simulated enemy attack. Work as a team. Trust your training. Show them what humans can do." Miles away, Admiral Vex studied the tactical display. His fleet was arranged in the Keth's traditional battle formation, a wall of firepower meant to crush any opposition through superior numbers and technology. Each ship carried weapons that could crack a moon, shields that had never been broken in 1,000 battles. "Begin recording," Vex commanded. "The High Command will want to see how easily their precious Deathworlders are defeated." Simulations started with warning klaxons throughout the Academy. Other alien cadets scrambled to their defensive positions. Yriks, with their multiple arms, worked the shield controls. Noth, with their crystal mines, calculated firing solutions. Grex, with their natural armor, took defensive positions. But the humans moved differently. While other species rushed to their assigned stations, the humans spread out in small groups, their movements smooth and coordinated. They didn't speak much, but they seemed to understand each other through simple gestures and looks. "Interesting," muttered Commander Zeal, the Academy's training director. The tall, blue-skinned Altarian had trained cadets for 50 years, but these humans moved unlike any species she had seen. They are not following standard defensive protocols. On his command ship, Admiral Vex watched his fleet begin the mock attack. The Academy's shields flared to life, its defensive guns tracking his vessels. Everything was proceeding as expected. Then the human cadets went into action. Tom's team took position near the Academy's main reactor. Maya's group secured the communications array. Jake and his partner moved to protect the shield generators. Nina's team positioned themselves at strategic choke points throughout the station. They moved with purpose. But more than that, They moved like they had trained for this exact scenario their entire lives. Because in many ways, they had Phase 1 complete, reported Officer Wren to Admiral Vex. Beginning primary assault. The Keth fleet opened fire with reduced power weapons, simulating a real attack. The Academy's shields absorbed the hits, but the strain showed on every display. Inside the Academy, alarms blared and lights flashed red. Other alien cadets struggled with their equipment, their training barely adequate for this level of stress. But the humans remained calm, their breathing steady, their hands sure. They had trained under Earth's harsh conditions, where a single mistake meant death. This was just another day for them. The stage was set for something the galaxy had never seen before. Asterisk. The simulation escalated as Admiral Vex's fleet pressed their attack. Plasma bolts lit up the void around the Galactic Training Academy, while defensive shields flickered under the assault. Inside the station, chaos reigned among most species as they struggled to adapt to combat conditions. Shield generators at 60% called out a panicked Urix cadet, its forearms dancing across control panels. I cannot maintain this rate of fire. Other alien species showed similar strain. The Noth cadets, despite their superior mental processing, found themselves overwhelmed by the speed of human decision-making. The Grex, naturally armored and strong, moved too slowly to keep up with the rapid tactical changes. But in the reactor section, Tom and his team worked with mechanical precision. While other species relied on complex computer calculations, the humans used simple, brutal efficiency. Nina, take your team to level 7, Tom called out, his voice calm despite explosions echoing through the station. Maya, can you get those communications back online? Already on it, Maya replied, her hands moving across damaged control systems. Where other cadets needed minutes to understand alien technology, she adapted in seconds. Commander Zeal watched from the Academy's command center, her blue skin pale with shock. How are they coordinating so effectively? They have no neural links, no quantum communication systems. The answer was simple, but the galaxy had never seen it before. Humans had evolved to work together under extreme stress. Every war, every natural disaster, every challenge on their deadly homeworld had taught them to function as a unified group when everything went wrong. Admiral Vex studied his tactical displays with growing confusion. The Academy should have fallen by now. His ships had overwhelming firepower, advanced targeting systems, shields that had never failed. Sir, Officer Wren's voice cracked with uncertainty. The defensive pattern has changed. The humans are. They are doing something unexpected. On the Academy, Jake had positioned his team at what seemed like random locations. But Tom understood. His friend was setting up overlapping fields of fire, creating kill zones that would trap attacking forces. It was basic infantry tactics, something every human learned, but the aliens had never encountered such thinking. They fight like they expect to die, whispered a Keth observer. But they are not afraid. This was the first thing the galaxy began to understand about humans. They had spent thousands of years preparing for the worst possible outcomes. Where other species developed technology to avoid danger, humans had learned to thrive in it. The simulation reached its second phase. Admiral Vex ordered his fleet to attempt boarding actions, sending simulated assault craft toward the Academy's docking bays. Standard defensive positions called out the Altarian instructors to their alien cadets. Prepare for close combat engagement. Most species fell back to fortified positions, setting up layered defenses according to galactic military doctrine. It was logical, tested, and had worked for centuries. The humans did something else entirely. Nina's team abandoned their defensive posts and moved toward the docking bays. Tan's group left the reactor core. Maya pulled her people back from the communications array. To every alien observer, it looked like the humans were retreating. They are falling back. reported Admiral Vex with satisfaction. The Deathworlders break under pressure, just like any primitive species. But Jake knew what his teammates were doing. They were not retreating, they were repositioning for an attack. When the first wave of simulated Keth soldiers entered the academy, they found empty corridors and abandoned defensive positions. Their advanced sensors showed no resistance, no prepared kill zones. And the humans struck. Tom's team hit the boarding craft from behind, cutting off their retreat. Maya's group attacked from above, using the station's maintenance shafts like natural terrain. Nina struck from the sides, her people moving through spaces too small for most alien species. But it was Jake who delivered the masterstroke. While the Keth forces spread out to secure the abandoned positions, he led his team in a direct assault on their command craft. Impossible, breathed Commander Zeal. They are fighting in 3 dimensions, using the entire station as their weapon. The Keth simulation officers watched in shock as their superior boarding force was systematically destroyed by 20 human cadets, using nothing but basic weapons and tactics that seemed to defy galactic military logic. Sir, Officer Wren's voice was barely a whisper. Our boarding simulation has been defeated. All assault craft neutralized. 0 human casualties. Admiral Vex's silver skin darkened with rage and confusion. His fleet had just been outfought by primitive Deathworlders using obsolete equipment. But the simulation was far from over, and the humans were just getting started. Admiral Vex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The boarding simulation had failed completely, but his pride would not allow him to accept defeat from primitive Deathworlders. Around him, his command crew shifted nervously, their confidence shaken by what they had witnessed. Begin Phase 3, Vex ordered, his voice tight with controlled anger. Full orbital bombardment simulation. Let us see how well these humans perform when facing real firepower. Officer Wren hesitated. Sir, the Academy's shields cannot withstand our full fleet power, even in simulation mode. The safety protocols override them, Vex snapped. These Deathworlders need to learn their place in the galactic order. What the Keth Admiral did not understand was that he had just made a fatal error. He had chosen to escalate against a species that had evolved specifically to handle escalation. On the Academy, alarms wailed as the defensive systems registered the incoming threat. The station's shields, designed to handle standard training exercises, began to buckle under the simulated assault of 200 warships. All alien cadets to emergency shelters, Commander Zeal announced over the intercom. This exceeds all safety parameters. The Yurix cadets scrambled for the reinforced bunkers, their multiple arms shaking with fear. The Noth retreated to their meditation chambers, their crystal minds unable to process the violence. The Grex huddled behind their natural armor, waiting for the storm to pass, but the humans remained at their posts. Tom, Maya called over the growing chaos, the shield generators are failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before total collapse. Then we have 10 minutes to win this. Tom replied calmly. Jake studied the tactical situation from his position near the main communications array. The Keth fleet had arranged itself in a perfect bombardment formation. Maximum firepower, overlapping fields of fire. No weak points. It was exactly the kind of overwhelming force that would crush any conventional defense. Nina. Jake called to his teammate. Remember the story Captain Rex told us about the Battle of Thermopylae? Nina's face lit up with understanding. 300 Spartans against a 1,000,000-man army. Exactly. Sometimes the best defense is making the enemy come to you on your terms. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The humans did not try to match the Keth fleet's firepower or engage in conventional tactics. Instead, they turned the Academy itself into a weapon. Tom's team began overloading the station's power systems, not to create explosions, but to generate massive electromagnetic pulses. Maya's group hacked into the Academy's communication systems, flooding Keth frequencies with false data and targeting information. But the masterstroke came from Jake and Nina working together. While the aliens had built the Academy as a fortress, the humans saw it as something else entirely, a massive missile. The orbital mechanics are perfect, Nina reported, her fingers dancing across navigation controls. If we adjust the station's position by just 3 degrees and boost the main engines, Jake grinned, we turn the Academy into a ramming weapon aimed right at their command ship. Admiral Vex watched his sensors with growing alarm as the Academy began to move. The massive station, supposedly helpless under his bombardment, was changing course and accelerating directly toward his fleet. Evasive action, he commanded. All ships break formation. But the humans had planned for this too. As the Keth fleet scattered to avoid the Academy's new trajectory, their perfect bombardment formation collapsed. Ships crashed into each other. Their coordination, broken by panic.tom, triggered the electromagnetic pulse just as the first Keth vessels came within range. The massive energy wave, amplified by the Academy's power systems, washed over the alien fleet like a tsunami. One by one, Keth ships went dark as their advanced electronics failed. Their sophisticated targeting systems crashed. Their quantum communication networks went silent. Impossible, whispered Officer Wren. How did they know our ships? Electronics were vulnerable to that frequency. The answer was simple. Humans had spent centuries dealing with electromagnetic interference on their storm-racked planet. They understood it intuitively, while the Keth had relied entirely on technology to protect them. Within minutes, Admiral Vex's mighty fleet was reduced to 200 powerless hulks drifting in space, their crews struggling with manual controls they had not used in decades. Sir, a shaken communications officer reported, we have lost contact with 90% of our ships. Their electronics are completely fried. Commander Zeal watched from the Academy's command center in stunned silence. 20 human cadets had just defeated a fleet that could have conquered entire star systems. But the simulation was not over. The humans were about to teach the galaxy one final lesson about what it meant to be from a death world. Asterisk. The Keth fleet drifted helplessly in space, their advanced systems crippled by the electromagnetic pulse. But Admiral Vex was not finished. His pride, the foundation of Keth superiority, demanded one final attempt to crush these upstart Deathworlders. All ships switched to manual controls, he ordered through short-range communications. Prepare boarding parties. If we cannot defeat them with technology, we will do it the old way. What Vex did not understand was that the old way was exactly where humans excelled. On the Academy, Captain Rex watched his cadets with quiet pride. The middle-aged instructor had seen combat across 3 sectors, but what his students had accomplished surpassed anything in his experience. Phase 4 beginning, Tom reported, studying the tactical display. They are sending boarding parties. How many? Maya asked, checking her weapon systems. All of them, Jake replied grimly. Every functional ship is launching assault craft. I count over 3,000 Keth soldiers. For any other species, this would have meant certain defeat. The Academy held only a few hundred cadets total, and most of them were now hiding in emergency shelters. But the 20 humans remained calm. Remember your training, Nina said quietly. We are not defending a space station. We are defending our home. This was the key to understanding humans that the galaxy had missed. Every human carried within them the genetic memory of 10,000 generations who had survived when everything went wrong. Their ancestors had faced ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and predators that made Keth warriors look gentle. Commander Zeal activated the Academy's internal communication system. Human cadets, you must retreat to the shelters. The odds against you are impossible. Tom keyed his communicator. Respectfully, Commander, impossible odds are what we train for. The first wave of Keth boarding craft attached to the Academy's hull. Heavily armed soldiers in advanced combat armor poured through the airlocks, their weapons designed to cut through any known material. They found empty corridors and silence. Spread out, ordered Keth Squad Leader Gore, his massive frame filling the doorway. Search every section. These Deathworlders cannot have vanished. But humans had not vanished. They had simply become invisible. Tom's team moved through the Academy's maintenance shafts, spaces designed for repair work that were barely large enough for human bodies. The larger Keth soldiers could not follow. Maya's group used the station's lighting systems to their advantage, creating darkness where they needed it, blinding flashes where they wanted confusion. Jake and his team had discovered something the Academy's builders never intended. The artificial gravity systems could be manipulated section by section. As Keth soldiers entered various compartments, they found themselves fighting in zero gravity, microgravity, or crushing force that made their armor feel like lead weights. But it was Nina who implemented the most devastating tactic. She had realized that the Academy's atmosphere recycling system could be WEAPONIZED. As Keth soldiers advanced through the station, the air around them began to change. Oxygen levels dropped. Carbon dioxide increased. Temperature fluctuated wildly. For species adapted to perfectly controlled environments, this was torture. But humans had evolved breathing systems designed for the planet's variable atmosphere. Squad Leader Gore to command. Came a panicked voice over Keth communications. We cannot locate the humans. They are attacking from everywhere and nowhere. Impossible, Admiral Vex replied. 20 primitives cannot defeat 3,000 trained soldiers. But they were not fighting 3,000 soldiers. They were fighting on human terms. Tom's team struck like lightning at isolated groups, appearing from impossible angles, fighting with improvised weapons and disappearing before the Keth could react. Maya used the station's own systems as weapons, turning routine maintenance equipment into deadly traps that caught the invaders by surprise. Chake created chaos by manipulating the Academy's communication systems, filling Keth frequencies with false orders, contradictory commands, and phantom contacts that sent soldiers racing toward empty rooms. Nina turned the very air into an enemy, making each breath a struggle for beings used to perfect environmental control. Within 2 hours, the mighty Keth boarding force was in full retreat. Soldiers who had conquered entire worlds found themselves defeated by 20 young humans using nothing but creativity, adaptability, and the ruthless efficiency of predators from a world that killed the weak. All units, fall back to the ships, Squad Leader Gore ordered, his voice broken with exhaustion and defeat. We cannot fight them. They are not like other species. Admiral Vex watched his forces withdraw in shame and confusion. His fleet was crippled. His soldiers were beaten. His pride lay in ruins, but the humans were not done teaching their lesson. The silence that followed the Keth retreat was deafening. Across the galaxy, military commanders, politicians, and scholars stared at their communication screens in disbelief. The impossible had happened. 20 human cadets had defeated one of the most powerful fleets in known space. Admiral Vex sat slumped in his command chair, his silver skin dulled with shame. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore their crippled systems. But the damage went far deeper than failed electronics. Sir, Officer Wren whispered, we are receiving communications from across the galaxy. Every major power wants to know what happened here. Commander Zeal stood in the Academy's command center, watching as her human cadets emerged from the maintenance shafts and service corridors where they had fought their impossible battle. They looked tired but unbroken, their simple training uniforms torn, but their eyes still sharp with readiness. How? She asked Captain Rex, her blue skin pale with shock. How did they defeat a force 50 times their number? Rex smiled grimly. You trained them to fight in space, Commander. But they learned to fight on Earth. The difference was everything. Where other species had evolved on worlds that were predictable, safe, controlled, humans came from a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They had learned to see opportunity in disaster, to find advantage in chaos, to turn any environment into a weapon. Tom wiped sweat from his forehead and checked on his teammates. Everyone okay? Tired, Maya replied, but ready for whatever comes next. Think they learned their lesson? Jake asked, gesturing toward the crippled Keth fleet. Nina studied the tactical display where Admiral Vex's ships drifted helplessly. Maybe, but there will be others who need to learn it too. She was right. Across the galaxy, military leaders were already analyzing the battle recordings, trying to understand how their assumptions about warfare had been so completely wrong. The Altarian High Command called emergency sessions. The Yurix Assembly demanded explanations. The Noth Collective ran millions of calculations, all reaching the same impossible conclusion. Humans had changed everything, but it was the transmission from Earth that made the greatest impact. This is Admiral Stone of the Earth Defense Force, came the calm voice over galactic communication networks. We understand there has been some confusion about human capabilities. Let me be clear. The 20 cadets you just witnessed are not our elite forces. They are not our special operations soldiers. They are not our most experienced warriors. A pause that seemed to echo across light years. They are students. Children by our standards. If you want to see what fully trained human soldiers can do, please continue to threaten our people. Admiral Vex closed his eyes in defeat. The humans had not just won a battle. They had announced their arrival as a galactic power in the most dramatic way possible. Commander, Zeal approached the human cadets with something approaching awe. What happens now? She asked. Captain Rex considered the question carefully. Now the galaxy learns to adapt, just like we had to. Over the following weeks, the battle recordings spread throughout civilized space. Military academies began studying human tactics. Diplomatic corps started learning about Deathworld, psychology. Scientists tried to understand how a species could be both cooperative and ruthlessly efficient. Perhaps the most significant change came from an unexpected source. We want to train with them, announced Cadet Zero of the Altarian forces, one of the alien students who had watched the entire battle from the emergency shelters. We want to learn what they know. Soon, cadets from dozens of species were volunteering for human-style training programs. They wanted to understand how 20 beings could accomplish what entire fleets could not. The humans, for their part, adapted to their new role with typical efficiency. They began sharing their knowledge, teaching other species how to think tactically, how to turn disadvantage into advantage, how to fight when everything went wrong. Tom found himself instructing Yurix cadets in small unit tactics. Maya taught Noth students about improvised weapons. Jake showed Grex trainees how to use their environment as a tool. Nini explained to anyone who would listen that the secret was simple. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and never give up. Admiral Vex eventually returned to Keth space. His career ended, but his understanding transformed. In his final report, he wrote words that would echo through military history. We believed we were superior because of our technology, our numbers, our experience. But the humans showed us that true strength comes from something else, the willingness to keep fighting when all logic says you should surrender. They are not just warriors. They are survivors. And in a galaxy full of threats we have not yet imagined, we will need that strength. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end asterisk.